Administering relational databases on Microsoft Azure DP-300 exam updated dumps can guarantee you success in the first attempt. Share some updated Microsoft DP-300 exam dumps here. 1. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that the customers can create the database objects. The solution must meet the business goals. What should you include in the recommendation? A. For each customer, grant the customer DDL_admin to the existing schema. B. For each customer, create an additional schema and grant the customer DDL_admin to the new schema. C. For each customer, create an additional schema and grant the customer DB_writer to the new schema. D. For each customer, grant the customer DB_writer to the existing schema. 2. You are evaluating the business goals. Which feature should you use to provide customers with the required level of access based on their service agreement? A. Dynamic data masking. B. Conditional access in Azure. C. Service principals. D. Row-level security, RLS. 3. You need to provide an implementation plan to configure data retention for Research DB1. The solution must meet the security and compliance requirements. What should you include in the plan? A. Configure the deleted databases settings for Research SRVOL. B. Deploy and configure an Azure backup server. C. Configure the advanced data security settings for Research DBL. D. Configure the manage backup settings for Research SRVOL. 4. Based on the PAS prototype, which Azure SQL database compute tier should you use? A. Business Critical 4 vCore. B. Hyperscale. C. General Purpose vCore. D. Serverless. 5. Which audit log destination should you use to meet the monitoring requirements? A. Azure Storage. B. Azure Event Hubs. C. Azure Log Analytics. 6. What should you implement to meet the disaster recovery requirements for the PAS solution? A. Availability zones. B. Failover groups. C. Always-on availability groups. D. Geo-replication. 7. What should you use to migrate the PostgreSQL database? A. Azure Data Box. B. As Copy. C. Azure Database Migration Service. D. Azure Site Recovery. 8. You need to implement the surrogate key for the retail store table. The solution must meet the sales transaction dataset requirements. What should you create? A. A table that has a foreign key constraint. B. A table that has an identity property. C. A user-defined sequence object. D. A system-versioned temporal table. 9. You have a Microsoft SQL Server 2019 instance in an on-premises data center. The instance contains a 4 TB database named DB1. You plan to migrate DB1 to an Azure SQL database managed instance. What should you use to minimize downtime and data loss during the migration? A. Distributed availability groups. B. Database mirroring. C. Log shipping. D. Database migration assistant. 10. You have SQL Server on an Azure virtual machine that contains a database named DB1. DB1 contains a table named Customer PII. You need to record whenever users query the Customer PII table. Which two options should you enable? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. A. Server audit specification. B. SQL Server audit. C. Database audit specification. D. A. Server principle.